I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just talk about this fucking movie. Welcome back to Movies and Me Extra, and today I'm bringing a fellow Spidey fan to talk all about Spider-Man Homecoming with me, and he's a very special guest, not only because he's one of the biggest Spider-Man fans that I know, but it's also his birthday today. Welcome to the show, Randall Sans. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today. I'm so glad that we're getting to talk Spider-Man. Good. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I mean, I've only seen it once. You saw it twice, and just before we head into spoilers, because that's really what I want to talk about here,
Yeah.
spoiler-free reaction. What do you think?
All right. So I don't know. So I went into this movie I didn't want to get my hopes up, and then I came out just like completely blown away with what they had done with this character. Like, this was a true Peter Parker film, and then like going and seeing it a second time, I came out thinking, "Wow, I really like this movie even more having seen it again." Like, it somehow, like, the rewatchability of it just it became easier to watch the second time almost.
Yeah, and that's rare for a lot of MCU films. Like, I like a lot of them, but I wouldn't say a lot of them are very rewatchable. Maybe like Iron Man, Winter Soldier, and this one now. But yeah, this movie just has like so much fun, and for me, it perfectly captures the heart of who Peter Parker is.
Yeah, and it's just like it was insane. Like you said, it was very funny. Like, this was probably one of the more comedic movies that they've done,
Oh,
and
definitely.
yeah, and it worked. Like, it didn't seem out of place for him. Like, the way they shoehorned and brought Spider-Man into the MCU, it just seemed flawless. Like he'd always been there.
I mean, they did do that thing where it was like, oh, that kid in Iron Man 2 was Peter Parker the whole time, but that felt just really convenient, but I could still roll with it.
Yeah, if it works out, it works out, and I'm all right with it. It adds a little bit of more to it, almost.
Yeah, for sure. So let's not waste any more time. Guys, we're heading into spoiler talk right now, so if you haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming yet, click away, come back later, go check out some of my other Spider-Man videos. I've done video essays, a Homecoming reaction pitch, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming out. I've got another idea for a Spider-Man video essay, both on this one and on the Raimi's first Spider-Man as well. So, what do you want to talk about first with spoilers, Randall? You're the birthday boy and you're the guest. I'll let you take the reins.
All right, so if we're going straight in the spoilers, I feel like we have to like start out just talking about the Vulture.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
the way Michael Keaton plays this character was like, he was so maniacal almost, but at the same time, like, you could get behind him. Like, he had like he they give you just enough like of his backstory and like everything. I guess with the damage control aspect of it. 8 years before, I guess, after the Avengers in New York City, and then Tony Stark kind of taking that away from him. Like, it gave a lot of motive for why he's doing the things he's doing, and then like his whole family aspect of it as well, trying to take care of his family. Like, you feel for the man, but at the same time, you're like, you're an evil guy, can't deal with it.
Yeah, I noticed he has kind of like a Tony Soprano slash Heisenberg persona about him, like where he's not a full
Yeah,
bad guy. You understand why he's doing what he's doing, but still, to Peter Parker, he's the bad guy. And you know how this movie does not have Uncle Ben in it, or the great power comes great responsibility thing? I noticed that. Well, we find out later that Adrian Toomes is Peter Parker's love interest, Liz's father, and later on, there's a scene in the car where it's so well done, it's so intense. Keaton plays it up perfectly, and then Peter decides I've got to leave Liz at the homecoming and I've got to go stop the Vulture. And for me, that showed the with great power comes great responsibility thing again. Because imagine if he had just looked the other way, Liz might have gotten hurt. So once again, this movie completely captures the heart of who Spider-Man is and weaves in that Uncle Ben motto thing without even having Uncle Ben in the movie. And that's just masterful storytelling.
yeah. So like they did a great job. I was glad they didn't show Uncle Ben. Like, they alluded to it with like the whole Aunt May, like that's what she's been through and everything. But like, I like that they didn't have to go, because we don't need that. We know who's like that part of Spider Man's life. Like, we don't need that again. And I think it did show like the constant struggle between him wanting to be that like high school kid that's going to dances and having fun and having to like juggle being also a superhero and trying to save people and what his responsibilities, like you said, like it showed that perfectly without actually having to say it outright.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can bring up one tiny flaw I have with the Vulture, it's not really to do with his character, but just one scene. In the beginning, it introduces another Shocker, and I'm like, this guy's clearly being introduced just so the Vulture can kill him, because he's a completely arrogant, lazy guy. I believe it's Jackson Montana Bryce, which is a nice little nod to the Spectacular Spider-Man show. And then he picks up a gun and he says, yeah, you're right, I can't afford you on my team if you're going to be like this, and vaporizes him. But right after he says, I thought that was a gravity gun, I thought adding that in kind of took it away from the scene, and if he had actually meant to kill him and was willing to take that risk, that would have added to the Heisenberg mentality, and I think it would have made him more scary.
I agree. That kind of did lessen him out, and I wonder if that had something to do with like studio. Like, they're like, maybe we should rein this guy back a little bit because I feel like watching some of this, like especially the scene in the car that you brought up when he's dropping them off at the homecoming dance. Like, like the first thing he does when he's talking to Peter, when he's just like, "Oh, go ahead and honey, I'm going to give that father a talk to Peter real quick." Like, he pulls out a gun out of his glove compartment, puts it on the headrest. Like, that to me like showed something that I didn't think Marvel had in them. Like, I didn't think they were going to give a villain like that type of power in a situation against someone. Like, especially in a movie like this, it just seemed like adding that gun to it like brought it to a whole different level of like the type of person he was dealing with to me.
And what a great way to play into the factor of meeting your dad of your date, but your dad's now also a supervillain.
Yes. It's the like perfect whole analogy. It's like you go over, you meet your girl, you got a shotgun waiting for you, just like.
And Michael Keaton's got vulture wings waiting for you.
Oh man, that vulture suit too. Oh, that was
so much attention to detail, like the bomber jacket, the pilot helmet, even he kind of drapes his wings around him so he actually looks like a vulture. Like, there was so much homework went into it.
Yeah, that second suit was pretty cool with the wings, and then like the way he could like seal himself up on the ship when he was trying to steal stuff. Like, that was insane.
I think what we're saying is we're glad that he wasn't wearing the suit from the comics.
I liked this approach to it with the claw feet too, to grab onto stuff, and like it was a cool take on a realistic Vulture.
Yeah, and there's even a nod to that suit where with like the ruffled feathers around him. That just looked really cool.
But about that jacket too, the way they did that makes him actually, and he's kind of balding. he's got that old man Vulture look, like, which is perfect.
I mean, if you're gonna cast Birdman, go the whole way with it.
Might as well, right? I was reading something about that. It's just like this man's like in the middle of his like renaissance, like in terms of film. Like, he would kind of like delegated to lesser roles, and he did Birdman, and now he's with this, like it's kind of like completing, I guess, like a cycle between like what he started with Batman in the '80s, and then working his way through, and like it was an interesting article. But
you should send me that after the show, and if we,
I'll look it up for you.
If we can look into the other villains, I liked the Shocker in this movie, Bokeem Woodbine, but like that fight with him outside of the high school homecoming was that's classic Spider-Man. That's really fun. But I do wish they gave a bit more depth to the Shocker, like the same way they were doing with Keaton, and that left me a little bit disappointed. But he looked cool, the gloves were really cool, and I love that he webs Shocker up and he webs Vulture up and just leaves them for the police, because that's always like the final panel in a Spider-Man comic.
And bringing up the whole comic aspect of it too, this movie did feel almost like a comic book story arc.
It did.
Throughout, the way, like the beats that it hit, almost was like, oh, here's the end of a chapter. Now we're reading a new chapter, and it was like a long story arc, and I did enjoy that also about the story. Yeah, and going back to the Shocker, I did like the way like his suit was like developed. Like, it wasn't too comic booky. He wasn't wearing a mask or anything. But I did like that they kind of tried to shoehorn him in, But at the same time, I would have liked more, like you said, like in terms of like backstory, or maybe not even backstory, but just a little bit more for that character to do.
Yeah, I completely get you with there, but there is one final scene that I can bring up that really just encompasses why I love the movie. Well, it kind of links to two scenes. One is when he loses the Stark internship and he says that to Aunt May, and you know he's lying about the whole truth, like he's dancing around it, but the emotion is still there. And for this movie just has so much heart, and it harkens back to when superhero movies weren't afraid to have heart in them. Like, I feel like each one feels like it needs to be cynical nowadays, and this one reminded us that you don't need to have that. Same with Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and I think it helped also to like build this as like this is a teenager. Like he is in high school. He's doing these things that these other adults are doing, but he has other things to worry about, like homework and girl problems and things like that too. And of course, like him losing that whole Stark internship, like that was going to be like a very emotional thing for him, because he felt like he just been basically like yelled at by a father figure, and then being grounded. He had his suit taken away from him. Like, so of course it worked perfectly in the sense of like showing us like this is a teenager.
Yeah, absolutely. And one final scene that I'm going to bring up, when he's talking with the Vulture in the warehouse and the Vulture drops a load of rubble on him, it's lifted straight out of one of the old Ditko comics where he has to find a way to get out that rubble and go stop the Vulture, and you hear a voiceover from Tony Stark. I was praying that Tony Stark wasn't going to get him out of there, and thankfully that didn't happen. He proved that he's Spider-Man without the fancy suit, and that had me crying in the movie. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah, and that was definitely the most like emotional scene for me as well. Especially like that feeling of being stuck. Like I understand like that right there is like one, like in terms of like fears, like being stuck is like one of those high up on my list, because I understand that feeling. I've been stuck before, like in a tight spot. So being stuck and like seeing him crying and trying to get out, and then overcoming all of that through realizing, hey, I am more than the suit. I am Spider-Man. Like that, and then getting out of it, like that, like showed his evolution as a character as well, and just made it that much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. And is there anything else that you want to bring up before we head into the wrap-up stage?
Trying to think. I want to bring up, I like that they kind of set up for the next villain, or at least they kind of allude to it with I can't remember the exact character's name.
Matt Gargan.
Setting up for the Scorpion, basically. Oh. And I like how they even like put the tattoo on his neck too, to kind of like give you that like beforehand.
Yeah, and I love that that's Michael Mando, because you've seen he can bring depth to a character.
Yes, yeah, he's done a great job on TV.
Yeah, like Better Call Saul, and even with Far Cry 3, he has that insanity monologue. Could you imagine that, but in the Scorpion suit?
Yeah, and I'm excited. I like the way they're heading with the villains and the rogues that they're using for these this homecoming movie and forward.
Well, I think we're all excited for this going forward, and I think that'll wrap up this extra. Guys, go see Spider-Man Homecoming. Just go see it a second time. Birthday Boy here has proved that it even holds up on a second time. So, Randall, thank you so much for coming on the show. We finally got you here, and you're going to be on the main show very soon once I get that back up and running. But where can the good people find you, and is there anything that you want to plug because it's your birthday?
I just want to say thanks. I'm glad to be able to do this with you. You can find me on Twitter at Randall Sans. But other than that, I'm not really doing too much right now. If you want to just come talk movies or television, or just come yell at me, you can do that too. I'm pretty good at just taking a verbal beating.
I've said this on Twitter. You're the most laid back guy I know.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I try. I'm pretty high strung for the most part, at least in my actual life.
Well.
So I try to.
Well, you guys know what to do. Leave us a comment below or use the hashtag MoviesAndMeExtra to help continue the conversation. And if you want to see more Spider-Man stuff with me, that's all across the channel. I did Purple Dawn Enlightenment Hour with my good friend Morgan Robinson talking about Homecoming. I think that's going to be out today as well. I did a Spider-Man 2 video essay about Doc Ock, which has just passed 1,000 views. And thank you, Randall, for watching that and like sharing it and everything, because you're always sharing my stuff. That means a lot to me. And I'm gonna say this here. I am working on a video essay for Spider-Man Homecoming, but I have to wait for it to release on digital HD. And again, Randall, thank you so much for watching that freaking video, dude.
Oh no, really, you do a phenomenal job on these video essays. Like every one of them has been really good. I've enjoyed each of them, and I'm happy to share them with anyone and everyone. Like everyone needs to see these. Like I don't understand why they haven't already.
Oh, you're breaking my heart, buddy. But that'll wrap us up. Thank you guys for listening, and if you like this episode, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.